Hold on, I'll switch over here. There he is.
Why are you all
off kilter?
Lean to the side.
Lean to the side where you not.
I'll fix it for you, but
there you go. That's much better.
Simmer. We'll figure it out. Don't worry. It looks good. Great. Yeah, just sit to the right. Nice King's X-shirt, by the way. We greatly appreciate it. Welcome everyone. That's the word around town. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And I'm sticking to it. Lots to cover today. Not the least of which is apparently there is an India-Pakistan ceasefire that was allegedly negotiated by J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. I guess J.D. Vance was there to ratchet up tensions so that they would bomb the crap out of each other right up to the deadline that Marco Rubio had set, which is exactly how it played out. Literally, as soon as they agreed on when the ceasefire would start, both sides just started pelting each other with as much munitions as they had in the barrel, and then stop. And we'll see if that holds on because India is still
on the stream.
They are.
Yeah.
I know what it is. I got it figured out. We got it all figured out. I know what it is, and we will solve it. And think there it is. We're all good. Okay, now there will not be an echo on the stream. Sorry about that, guys. There was just a restart issue, and it was being very funky this morning. It was gremlins. So, India-Pakistan ceasefire. We'll see if it long. You know how we had Scaramucci's for how long it took somebody to be fired, Johnny Million?
Oh yeah. How many Scaramucci's will it take?
Anthony Scaramucci. Because a Flynn doesn't quite work as much, which I think a Scaramucci is like 2 Flynns. Or 2.5 Flynns,
that's the
right?
Exchange rate.
That's the current exchange rate or whatever. Yeah. But if you invest in gold, it goes straight up. I don't know how many Scaramucci's Mike Waltz will qualify for, but I think there's going to be like a Witkoff in terms of ceasefires, because Witkoff's Steve Witkoff is about 2 pounds. And so there is, we'll see. He was initially set up. It's like Steve Witkoff was initially sent in to deal with Israel and Gaza, and he secured a ceasefire for 90 days that lasted less than 40. And then the response after that fell apart from the White House has been, whatevs. Nobody really cares. And Israel's the stronger of the two, so they'll just wipe everybody else out. That's really what we want anyway. So we at least pretended we had a ceasefire. That's the goal, right? We at least had we achieved the fake ceasefire. So whether it holds is no one's, like, you get the negotiating points, but you don't actually, it doesn't have to pay off. And watch for Trump's entire, peace deal scheme to work like that. And there are a couple of areas where they are, if they can just give the appearance that they started the ceasefire process, if it fails, it's not our fault. It's we're dealing with intransigence on either side. It's not like, you can't expect us to negotiate something that lasts. And again, I would argue that's the difference between a ceasefire and a reload. If both sides are just agreeing to a pause for a reload, like a timeout, like it's sports, not a ceasefire, technically. You're not ceasing fire. You're just in between rounds. You're in between, like, no one believes that an artillery cannon is in ceasefire mode as the shell ejects and another one is put in. Do you get my point? Right? No one is, that doesn't qualify for, in any measure. So we're going to see a bunch of this, I think. And hopefully the India-Pakistan thing holds. But again, India has cut off water to the Pakistani side of the Kashmir region, and 3 rivers that eventually flow into Pakistan and are crucial for Pakistan to survive. They have cut off that water supply. There is no way this ceasefire holds with water cut off. Yeah, you can go whatever 7 days without food, but 2.5 days without water, something like that, depending on how much water you're retaining, and God knows. But
I need some salt pills.
Seriously. But the reality is that there's no way this ceasefire I mean, there's no way they don't address that part of it and make this ceasefire hold. And if India has just decided it's better for them if they say, hey, we agreed to a ceasefire, that's all Trump's side asked from us. And while he says he likes both of us and he works well with both of us, we really know who he's going after, because they're trying to move all the pharmaceutical stuff and the electronics packaging and the jobs that, Americans don't want to do. They're trying to move those out of China into India right now. There is zero chance that Pakistan becomes a manufacturing hub for cheap goods for the American consumer anytime soon. And its main export in terms of the rest of the world's interaction with Pakistan currently is terrorist groups that they have no control over. Famously, they didn't know where Osama bin Laden was until they went, oh yeah, well, he's been living here for a couple years actually. And there are areas along the mountains of Afghanistan and those areas where technically they're part of Pakistan, but they just pretend to not have control of them or don't have control. It's anybody's guess. Nobody's going to go in there and take a poll. And it's similar in many ways to the Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen or the Hezbollah-controlled areas of Lebanon. And as as Steve Witkoff makes his way through all these conflicts, what the ultimate response from the White House has been is, well, we'll give it a shot, but I mean, nobody's really expecting this to work out, even though Trump sold us this bill of goods that he was going to end all these conflicts, no new wars, and I could end every conflict with a phone call, especially Russia-Ukraine, which A, never would have happened if he was president, but B, now that he's president, still isn't stopping. So I'm not quite sure what the motivating factor, why you can assert that it never would have happened if it's still going on once you showed up. You know what I mean? It's like, you wait till your father gets home. He's got $10 on your older brother, like in this fight. It's, when dad gets here, he's going to join in. I don't know what, he's going to sit on the side and eat popcorn and watch both of you. If the idea is that he's the, like as many MAGA media people have said, daddy's home. They've thrown around this kind of weird paternal grotesqueness, which, by the way, especially with Trump, who had like next to no input on the raising of his children, except to treat them like crap if they didn't wear a business suit to a baseball game, and lead them to their worst impulses. So the idea that daddy's home and he's actually going to do anything except yell at mommy for why these kids are making so much noise while he's trying to watch Shark Week or something. Right. We'll see if if Witkoff becomes a term for, a failed ceasefire, because I think
your head in Witkoff.
Yeah, exactly. There is I'm guessing what's a current Witkoff is 40 days. That's the outside of a Witkoff. If they start getting shorter, whatever the shortest one will be, the measuring
unit. COVID. It's like long Witkoff.
Yeah, you get long Witkoff. They've got, right. But at the same time, like I said, it did not last, and they moved on. And at the same time, I would like to bring up that Trump had this, I don't know, this private meeting with Netanyahu's advisor, this guy Ron Dermer, who's been their kind of liaison go-between with Marco Rubio and all these other guys, who's been, I don't know, gaming out what their Iran situation will be. And there's been this kind of like tug and play of we're stiff-arming Israel right now so that we can distance ourselves from what they're doing, so we don't have to claim responsibility for letting them move on their worst impulses, while at the same time they set up this thing with the Houthis where they said they reached an agreement that they wouldn't fire, that the Houthis wouldn't fire on any more ships, which apparently the Houthis came out like 2 hours later and went, we never said that. And that seems to be this is my argument now, that we are in the middle of the cosplay presidency. That this is all for show. Everything is wrestling. Pete Hegseth is not a functional choice to head the Pentagon. Pete Hegseth is a wrestling pick, Saturday afternoon bluster,
Everything's
yelling
a
into the microphone.
distraction.
And everything is a show of it, because I would argue that in the case of the ceasefire in Israel, now that they've pretended to achieve one, and it's always a jump ball over who broke the ceasefire between Israel and Gaza, between the Palestinians and Israel, that they can always, even if it isn't a jump ball, even if they can agree that it's a jump ball or make enough noise in the press that it was, move on. It's not a thing. We'll just let Israel do what they're going to do. And that's exactly what's happening right here. The Houthis insist you got a ceasefire with them, a truce. And then even if they say, that's not what we agreed on, we're not going to do that at all. As a matter of fact, no ship will travel through here if we can help it. And then they fired on the Israeli airport, which, again, used to be a huge no-go. And they're like, nah, we're just going to wipe them out anyways. We're just letting them build up, let them be bad actors for a little bit. So on the world stage, it'll give us an excuse to just plow the field. That seems to be the push. And it turns out, Trump is going to the Middle East without going to Israel this time, and Israel was trying to push for him to go there. When in reality, he's, honestly, I don't know why they would expect him to, because he's going to, for business deals, mainly who's going to do a major trade using his crypto or allow him to build a building or a hotel there in the future. And so this is really a business trip. It's like it's instead of golfing, he's going to Saudi Arabia and Qatar and I think one other country. But he had this private meeting with Ron Dermer before he left. And usually the White House, the president meets with the prime minister and everybody else meets with the middle guy. But Trump's just talking directly with the middle guys at this point, because they're all on the same team, it would seem. And they're just kind of, why bother? He's going to carry the message. And a lot of this it's like we used to worry about back channels when it came to Trump. These are just out in the open back channels. Everything is Pete Hegseth's landline at this point. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. I guess we'll talk about how Trump is pretending to be president. Kash Patel is pretending to run the FBI. Hegseth is pretending to be SecDef. At this point, they all ought to just wear Skyrim outfits.
To have hair.
No, you're not. We'll be back.
See?
Okay, let's see if I can straighten you out, you crazy person. There's that. And then
many of Jesus' campus tried.
That's not true at all.
You gotta pray away the gay. I can move.
On it. Yeah, sit in the center and I'll fix that part of it.
I'm gonna sit where I think I should be. I think this is right.
I think that's right as well. Hold still. Hold still. It only stings if you move. Stop it. You sit there and do not. All right. Yay, I think that works. Move you a little bit this way.
Me too.
That works. Okay. It feels so much better. Like aesthetically. I need to open up my my chat. Hi, chat room. Hi, everybody. Let's see. I'm going to jump in here. Grab this out. Throw this in the way. We're great on Substack right now. Hi, Instagram peoples. Oh, wait. No, we're not up on Instagram. Hold on. We're going live on Instagram. We're live on Instagram right now. Okay, that was where the issue. While I was chasing that audio issue. Stop it. Stop it, Johnny Million. Stop it.
40 seconds.
What'd I do?
Okay, thank you. We're up on Instagram. We're fine. Don't worry about it. Just sleep. And when you wake up, you'll not bother me with weird echoing problems anymore. 1, 2, 3. All right, there you go. That didn't bother me. I will not be bothered. I'm not bothered by that at all. Nope. Yeah. Yeah.
Had a very shiny nose.
Welcome back to the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
That's right. Welcome back, Johnny Million. How you doing?
Hi. Things are good. It was great seeing you last week, Hal.
I know. It was so lovely. We have to do that
Hal
again,
came
and
over
we
to
are.
my house.
Yeah, that was
the
weird.
cats.
I did. I got to pet the cats, and they were lovely. And they were adorable and sweet. They did. They liked me very much. Almost a little too much, I think. It was, and you gave me an impromptu guitar lesson, which was wonderful.
I don't even know where that came from.
Look, I'm all for it. I've been trying to get you to do it for years. So like this is
because you're so good. I'm like, hang on a second, he's ready to hear this.
Yeah, I'm ready to move up to the next level. Except I have bad habits from years of playing the way I do that are hard to unlearn. But
I just got fuzzy. I don't think I'm fuzzy on my cam.
I think you are fuzzy on your cam. I think you need to stop being fuzzy. Yep. Just focus it. Focus. There you go. See, there you go. You're not fuzzy when it's that close. So it's clearly, did you put your hand up? Much better.
No,
Stay
we'll
like
just
this.
do this.
I kind of like it. It's got a very Star Trek kind of Q feel to it. So one of the reasons why I'm bringing up this whole it's a cosplay presidency. There's this article in the Daily Beast, and it's not surprising to anybody because if you'll recall, Kash Patel this week made maggots very angry. Oh, he was very upsetting for maggots. I don't know if you know this, but he came out and said, "I believe Jeffrey Epstein hung himself in his cell," which should be, I guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Mr. I'm going to padlock the doors of the FBI field, the Washington building and turn it into a museum for the deep state is all like, I believe that Jeffrey Epstein hung himself in a cell. And that's that. And so whatever you feel about that doesn't matter. It's about what maggots feel about it. And boy, were they upset. Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
They were very upset because now Kash Patel is talking exactly like Chris Wray. That's right. This is
I don't know who Chris Wray is.
Chris Wray was Trump's last pick for the guy he kicked to the curb, right? And the idea was that the deep state got to him. It's like, no, maybe the evidence got to him. It's one of those things where like it's like all the people who turn on Trump, after hanging out with him for a little while, and they're like, everybody betrays him. Like, nah, I think once they see the evidence, I think a good portion of them are just like, oh, wow, I didn't get a good from the outside. I believed his BS that he was buying and selling. And now now that I've seen the evidence up close, he really is the scumbag everybody says he is. So, of course, I don't want to hang out with this dude anymore. And Johnny's frozen, but he's working on it. Don't worry. So
I'm working on it. This is my laptop camera. Hi.
Don't see anything. Nope. Still the same one.
Oh, you don't? Oh.
Nope.
Let me see it now.
There you go. That's better.
There you go.
Now you got to move again. Dark nabbit. So
I'm gonna
Kash
try
Patel,
to switch it back.
You're fine.
What are you trying to put out a show?
Yeah, no, it's fine. So Kash Patel is, and this is the article. There you go. Much better. Kash Patel is seriously infuriating FBI officials. Now, this is the part that led me to the cosplay part, and really, like, I wasn't expecting to be this aggravated by this particular detail. There's a bunch of this. The general story of this is that instead of throwing himself into the job and trying to gain credibility with the officials he's been tasked with leading, a dozen current and former officials say at the FBI and Department of Justice said they're worried he wasn't taking the position seriously enough, according to NBC News. For decades, the FBI chief has received an 8:30 a.m. daily director's brief with the most important information gathered from thousands of agents and analysts. Patel reportedly had trouble making the morning briefing, so it was dropped from 5 days a week to 2. You basically have one job.
He had a hard time getting to the meeting?
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing other than flying to see his girlfriend in Nashville on the taxpayer's dime, which he has done twice using FBI planes, or flying home to Vegas, where he has a place, which he's done using an FBI plane, or going to UFC games. Like, he's had time to go to several sporting events, but he just can't make his daily briefing. I would argue that if you've got a list of priorities, your actual job should be at the top, especially when it deals with, the organization that caught the Unabomber, for crying out loud, right? Okay. So even that has been a struggle, an unnamed official told NBC. 2 current FBI officials said Patel sometimes seems uninterested in the materials, forcing them to create briefs that will hold his attention. I mean, he's almost like the perfect Trump hire. This is exactly Trump's problem. Are they all on the same? Maybe they all got a bad batch of Adderall. Maybe that's what's happening.
Yeah,
right?
It is not kicking them in the rump like they needed to.
Nope. And then, okay, so he also ended a long-standing practice of holding secure weekly video conferences with field office leaders across the country. The meetings were considered a crucial way to share information and priorities across the Bureau. Bureau spokesman Ben Williamson denied to NBC that Patel had been late to morning director's brief and said the director still attends 3 other smaller morning meetings each week. Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better. He not only, the idea is that I can't confirm that he skips his daily brief, but I mean, if he's not there, he just, and the 2 that we set up because he wasn't showing up to all 5, maybe he doesn't even go to those. Maybe he just goes to these smaller brief meetings with his assistant or somebody, his chief of staff later, kinda, possibly. What the hell? So FBI officials also told NBC that Patel stopped holding the meetings because of attempted leaks. I don't know what the heck that is. I would think it would be worse that people leak that you're not doing your job than, and again, how does that lead to less leaks about stuff if you're not having the meetings? I guess maybe it's to whom the FBI wasn't a source for any of the major leaks that we know of. None of the leaks that everybody's been beating the reeds about and freaking out about in Trump world have come from the FBI. They all came directly from Homeland Security, Mike Waltz, or Pete Hegseth. So during his first week on the job,
who's that other person? Who's the big leak lady?
The big leak lady, Laura Loomer. Yeah, well, she's more like, she doesn't leak so much as spill the tea. Right, so she's gotten somewhere in the order of like 50 people fired.
People like clandestine agents, she blew their cover.
I don't know which one you're referring to. In the last Trump, yeah, that's okay. No, it's okay. Yeah. Feel free to look up what you mean, where you saw it or whatever while I'm going through this. I would love to hear that part of it. But I mean, that's the danger of this all the time, anyways. I mean, I don't know if Patel is not having these meetings because if I don't know it, the bad guys can't know it because I'm the one who gets drunk and blabs to people, right? Who knows? Okay, so he canceled this video conferencing with the field offices. He said he might hold the calls just once a month instead of once a week. And there's a growing sense of, okay, Patel's bragged about busting that judge, and this is the part that I think really stuck out to me. Some agents are also annoyed with Patel's photo ops. The outlet reported, despite being deeply critical of the FBI before he took over as its director, the MAGA loyalist has dressed up in FBI gear, joined field agents for training exercise. This is the Hegseth thing again. And even some operations, with the photos later appearing on social media. Some agents weren't happy that Patel was pictured wearing an FBI field agent's badge, despite not having gone through the rigorous training required to earn it. Meanwhile, here he is at a UFC fight with RFK Jr. sitting right behind Trump next to Dana White. He's got time for that. I mean, look, that's why he has to cut it down to once a month. That's why you got to, I mean, he can't be doing all this bureaucratic nonsense, this mumbo jumbo. And at the same time, we find out that Trump has skipped all but 12 of his daily intelligence briefings. And those 12, he seemed, distracted, uninterested, shrugged everything off, certainly didn't read the brief. And we've been through this with a Republican president before who didn't read his presidential daily brief. And a year later, it went very badly. Right? He has been president for more than 100 days. In that time, he's reportedly shown a troubling lack of regard for his daily intelligence briefings. Trump has reportedly sat for just 12 daily briefings since his second term began in January. An eyebrow-raising drop from the already infrequent schedule of his first time in office. So we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Parks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah. Political reports that Trump received just 2 in-person intelligence updates per month in the first quarter of 2025 before shifting to a weekly briefing schedule in April. During his first term, Trump averaged 2 per week, the same number as Biden did during his administration. It's sadly clear that President Trump doesn't value the expertise and dangerous work performed by our intelligence professionals each and every day. That was Mark Warner saying that. 100 days of greatness. Just lame. What a dingaling. Yeah, he doesn't read the book. He ousted Mike Waltz, punted him over there. Mike Waltz is now going to cosplay as our UN ambassador. Here's the other one. We'll get to this when we come back. Hegseth cancels Israel trip to join Trump on Air Force One. He's going to Saudi Arabia with him, where they're going to, for some reason, change the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Gulf, which would be more supportive of the Khomeini regime than the Persian people of Iran that were effectively wiped out, pushed aside, or subverted in the Muslim expansion that took over Iran, made it Iran. Why don't you just call it the Iranian Gulf while you're at it?
For real.
Super weird. Such it's so ignorant. It's shocking even for them, because they're surrounded by people like, that are, American Persian, exiles, or people who are rich, or, any of these.
40 seconds, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go to here.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. Oh, dear. Okay. You just slipped over a little bit in that last one during that switch over. Dag nabbit. Look out.
Oh, now I'm sick.
Boink, boink, boink. Black. All right, we're fine. We're coming back. Jesus. Like, this is so, all of it is so lame, at once. We'll get to the Ukrainian stuff, which is an amazing shift. And I think it's like, by comparison.
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program. Mega worldwide.
So in an attempt to pull your enemies closer, Trump canceled Hegseth's trip to Israel, where he was going to meet with his counterparts and the like, and decided to take him on Air Force One on this trip to the Middle East, mainly Saudi Arabia. And they had been, planning this Israeli trip for quite some time. And then he just called him up and said, actually, I'm bagging out. I'm going to go to Saudi Arabia and these other countries with Trump. So let's see. The plan was for Hegseth to travel to Saudi Arabia from Israel on Tuesday to join him after the fact, but he's skipping Israel altogether. Which, by the way, the idea that they're somehow dropping support for Israel in this process, or for Netanyahu, is silly. What they're doing is looking the other way. By having Witkoff stage this sort of phony limited ceasefire and letting it fall apart. Now, we did our 2 cents worth and we're done. They can do whatever they need to respond. We're behind them in whatever response they need. And so if we don't talk to them directly, nobody can tie us directly to what was actually going on. So, I mean, this is like his relationship with Russia all this time. Meanwhile, we know that they've been having these back channel meetings because, again, Trump is talking to these people Netanyahu's ambassadors and underlings and people on his security force that normally Trump would talk directly to Netanyahu in this situation, but they're just kind of planning stuff because it's already a foregone conclusion. They don't even have to reach an agreement. He's just hearing directly from, and maybe it's because he doesn't get excited by anything else. But anyways, on Thursday, Hegseth's team notified the Israeli Ministry of Defense that the trip is canceled because President Trump asked Hegseth to travel with him from Washington to Saudi Arabia on Air Force One. I guess Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent, Chris Wright, and who's the Secretary of Energy, and Commerce Lutnick are also scheduled to join them. So the idea that this is a world peace trip and not a how do we all get rich during this business trip is absurd. we're not. They're other than okay. And then that, by the way, brings us to tariffs and trade. Okay, so the whole idea that the tariffs are the most beautiful words in the world. And today, allegedly, the Chinese are meeting with their counterparts in the United States for the first time in Switzerland. I guess Bessent was supposed to go there, or is there, or something. It's hard to say. And they're going to meet about this, about the tariffs or whatever. And right before them, Trump said they're at 145% now. Feel like 80% will drop to 80%, which is still a ridiculous non-starter and obviously takes almost every consumer good out of China that somebody wholesales there and
He's
sells
just
in
coming
the
up with
rest of the
numbers
world.
that he likes off the top of his head. This has nothing to do with anything.
I mean, honest to God, I think he rounded up 146 to 160 and cut it in half at 80. You know what I mean? Like he just, you know what I mean? Because 7.5 seems weird. So how about just 8? And these are nice round numbers in his mind. We'll cut it from 146 to 80, and people could grasp 80%. That sounds good to me, even though it sounds insane. But that's exactly what it is. So over the, right before this deal comes up, the Chinese said, we will talk, but you have to take off all the tariffs. And they said no. And there's still no word whether this, by the way, this conversation is a meeting to decide if we can talk. So if they show up and they're like, no, take off the 80% or we're not talking, and then they just go home, then what? Well, I don't think there is a then what. I think Trump and his team either we have a PNAC situation like we had with Bush and Cheney, where people behind the scenes are pulling the strings and they have a different plan that have nothing to do with the tariff negotiations between the United States and the rest of the world, but they are using this as leverage to destroy the Chinese economy once and for all. And they think this is how you do it, is you've got to shiv it really badly instead of just a death by 1,000 cuts, some that are its fault, some that are, it have to do with its interaction with other economies, but you just they're just going in for the kill, essentially. And if it means we get hurt temporarily, if it can wipe them out and make them no longer a competitor, the United States, China was allegedly the second biggest economy in the world. Now, many people know I have been through this dozens of times on my show. I have been there a lot of times, several times in the lead up to COVID. I was there about every other month for almost 2 years. And the economic powerhouse that we've all heard China was shown largely to be an illusion while I was there. It was shocking over that time to come to that realization as a fan of the Chinese people and as a borderline sinophiliac and who studied martial arts my entire life. Like I have always loved Chinese culture at its root and all that kind of stuff. And to watch with such disappointment as Xi Jinping pulled a Trump essentially with his 3 red lines. You could argue that 3 red lines policy of Xi Jinping is the equivalent of Trump's tariff nonsense, as insofar as the damage it did immediately and how it did not solve the problem you were looking at. And again, no one, not Lutnick, not Bessent, not anyone, has ever explained to me or any other American for that matter, including the maggots out there who allegedly support this, how you have the biggest economy in the world and you don't have a trade deficit. Because your consumer base is always going to buy more than people who can't afford to buy as much as you buy. Whether it's the EU or whether it's China or whether it's individual countries, that's a meaningless conversation. There is no way we don't have a trade deficit. Even Bourbon Breath Kudlow over at Fox Business was like, getting rid of nobody should get rid of the trade deficit. Nobody would want to. Well,
Buster Brooks
Trump
over there.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Nobody with any sense wants that to happen. Trump either does not understand that or is actively working against that baseline understanding. So you've got Kash Patel now cosplaying as Chris Wray, wearing an FBI field agent badge, even though he was never a field agent. You've got Kristi Noem in her, in her fatigues and bulletproof vest. You've got, Tom Homan dragging Dr. Phil around to see where these nests of vipers are, and you've got, Witkoff being the peacemaker who's basically just dividing, businesses up into pieces while he's in these situations. You have this report. Trump last week. This is on, what's the date on this? Like the 7th or something. It's like last Wednesday. Trump rejects any pullback on 145% China tariffs. Pretty direct, right? That is not a flexible statement. That is not a, we're working on it. Obviously it's, but we're not going to drop that before we have these meetings at all. Not going to go anywhere. That's not happening. And then, he said, asked directly by a member of the press. President Trump on Wednesday said he would not pull back on the 145% tariffs against China to get them to the negotiating table for the deal. Then, ahead of China-U.S. talks, Trump says 80% tariff seems right.
Yeah, that seems right.
A good portion of these have been paused. And again, across the board, most electronics, most computer parts, anything even with a computer involved in its making, from Peloton bikes to laptops to tablets and that kind of stuff, is largely exempt from the 145% tariff. The argument is that it still has a 10% tariff on it, which will raise the price of all these things. Let's say the company eats half of it so they don't have to pass it all on to their customers. It's either eating into their bottom line or it doesn't go out of the customer's pocket, so they keep selling units. And if they've got a marketing scheme that they set up usually 2 years in advance for things that are coming out, on the electronics front, you're already planning the next iteration of whatever you're putting out, and you've already ordered elements of it to be made and put together. What are you going to pass on 5% of it, which is double regular inflation? And inflation hasn't come down. It's still at 2.7% and going up. So you're going to add effectively a 7-8% inflationary cost on everything due to the tariffs. And I cannot state this clearly enough. This is seen by...
Oh, sorry.
I cannot... Yes, I couldn't possibly be clearer than Trump. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the clarity that I'm trying to make here.
The kidney has a very special place in the heart.
So,
yeah, it does.
It absolutely does.
Action replays in magnified fortune.
That kind of clarity. I'm not even capable, I don't think, of that kind of clarity, Johnny Million. But the Trump world, Lutnick, Bessent, and certainly Trump's like the puppeteers around him. As much as people talk about Jill Biden controlling Joe Biden, Don Jr. and Eric are the ones feeding him all these dumb business ideas. They're responsible for sitting down and watching Escape from Alcatraz with him last weekend, and then him deciding he wants to reopen it as a prison. Even though, again, I thought lowering spending was, never mind. We'll get to that after the next break. But looking at all of the plans that they put forward, all of in every direction, it is all performative. In some cases, because it is backed up by the size of the economy and backed up by the size of the military, other people in the world will take it seriously. But understand this, in terms of the trade war, there is no there because you can't marshal industry to not pass on those costs. We don't have governmental control over our industry the way China does, let's say. And so they're going to do what they got to do to retain customers, receive product, sell it at a price point the consumer can take, or keep from losing money on this idea during that time, which means an corporate war on making sure that everybody has to pay the same amount of tariffs, and anybody who's getting a break is gonna get, the White House could get sued for favoritism and mismatching trade barriers and all this kind of stuff. But be abundantly clear: Bessent, Lutnick, even Navarro's an idiot, but even the Trump whisperers around him, This is a feature, not a bug. The goal of this entire tariff thing is to eliminate the income tax long term. This is the first, shot across the bow in doing this. Eliminate the income tax and transfer the tax burden back to the consumer, which was largely the bottom 60% of the economy. Take the burden off the top 10% and put it on the bottom 60. That's what they're doing. Like while trying to in the middle zone, picking winners and losers in the middle class and upper middle class. The goal is to transfer the Elon Musk's tax burden to poor people, to everyday items that they buy, to the clothes you would see at Target and Walmart, the goods you would need. If you can't afford a nice metal shovel, that plastic snow shovel that you have to buy a new one every couple of years, transfer the people that have to buy that, transfer the burden to them. That's the goal. All of this is the rest of the tariff stuff is window dressing as part of that. It helps distract maggots with this argument about NAFTA that was put to bed 2 decades ago, thinking they're regurgitating that old argument as if they're going to bring these factories back and they're going to employ the same amount of people or more, which is absurd. And all the factories and all the investment that he's talking about is all for virtual stuff. It's all chips. It's all chips. Any car company that might be expanding is expanding their automated side of the factory. They are taking the workers they have and spreading them out over a larger factory. That's it. That's the advancement. So the whole story about re-litigating NAFTA is nonsense. The entire purpose of this is the transfer of the tax burden from the rich to the poor. Period. End of story. That is what they're doing. They've had this stick in their craw, this taxation is theft crowd has gotten into the Republicans' ear over the years. The libertarians, who are not actually a political movement or political party, they're more like somebody who thinks that they can buy a Tony Robbins book and make everybody else live by it except themselves, which is really what libertarianism is. The freedom to make everybody else give you your freedom to, I don't know, violate their freedoms. It's so odd. Not a real political movement. Feel free to at me. Libertarianism is ridiculous. AstroTurfed largely by the Russians and to help Ron Paul be a spoiler. But, that's another conversation for another time. But make no mistake, this is a transfer of the tax burden from the rich to the poor. That's what this is all about. In the end, this will be the result. And the problem that they have with China is not that it stole all our manufacturing. The problem that they have with China is that it provides a lot of cheap goods for the average American, and they've gotten too comfortable. You've got too many options. You have too much stuff available to you that only rich people should be able to afford. You shouldn't be able to have a computer like that. You haven't earned it, right? You're not part of the, you're not part of the in crowd. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah, this is the, where is it? Yeah. 80% tariff on China seems right. Up to Scott B., Trump wrote on Truth Social.
Seems right. Yeah, you just go with your gut there, my man.
Yeah, right. Based 80% for what? Stuff that we definitely don't make over here, or stuff that we will never make over here. In which case,
no, it's just a number I like, dude.
Yeah. Why would there even be a tariff on stuff we don't want to make? Thank you. Honestly.
You're locked into the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So, we saw the cosplay presidency has extended to all the cabinet members. It's like the world's meanest Comic-Con is going on in the White House right now. That this is all about it's like if every character in every superhero film was a BDSM character, and they're all just dressed up in the cruelest outfit they can possibly dream up. And you've got Ice Barbie, running around in camo and flak jackets. You have, and Vance even saying stuff like, well, in any of these situations, this is they're doing this art of the deal thing, which they bring up, which is where, if Trump is the Timu Antichrist, Vance is trying to be the Timu Trump. And his big sales pitch on everything is this whole, you have to be able to, you got to go to the table, even if people tell you not to go to the table, and you have to be willing to walk away from the table. Okay. Which is great if you're trying to raise venture capital funding for the new Candy Crush, or you're trying to, I don't know, create a new football league when no one needs one, or your own line of steaks, vodka, water, or a casino, right, that no one will go to except your dad will buy $15 million. I think it was $13 million in chips and never cash them in. That's not a loan under the table or anything, and a violation of the law, but whatever.
Yeah.
The idea is that you have to be able to, walk away in those situations. Well, if you're doing those kind of deals, you can walk away because nobody's life depends on it. I mean, you could argue in some cases that there are jobs that will be created, but you could also argue that those jobs would be lost somewhere else, that you're mostly going to poach people to run it that are either running something else successfully, or you're going to hire unsuccessful people and waste everyone's investment by watching it collapse, which is how Trump ran all of these things. That's how Trump vodka and Trump water and Trump steaks and all these kinds, and Trump University. That's how it worked. What if you're going to set up is a little from here's my entrepreneurial business advice. If you're going to start a company and there already exist companies like it, your best bet is to find the most successful one and poach anybody from there as far as employees that you possibly can, because they know how it all works. They know the market, they know the details of the thing itself, they know suppliers, all that kind of stuff. Don't hire the people that were fired for incompetence, or people that I don't know, what's his name, the lol cow on Twitter, former congressman he's so forgettable, who runs Truth Social now. Yeah, that don't hire people like that, have no idea what they're doing in these businesses, and really are just a placeholder for that thing, and you'll make all the decisions and micromanage everything behind the scenes. And these people are just there. If anything goes wrong, you can blame them. That's the purpose of employees for Donald Trump. Do as I say, and if it doesn't work, you're fired. And I will, I will blame you if we get in trouble for it. That's the current state of affairs, right? That's how he runs companies. Well, that might be fine in a company nobody cares about. Because think about the Trump organization, Trump hotels, the building holding the golf courses. If there was no Trump, there would be another Trump. Who cares? There'd be golf courses. There'd be fancy people making golf courses all the time, and they would, run them or sell them or buy them or whatever. There'd be hoteliers. There's lots of them. There's that run them more effectively, certainly, than Trump World does. There are plenty of New York real estate people selling and buying large buildings and selling condos in them and the like that aren't mobbed up, or decide to build, when everyone else is building with steel, build a building like Trump Tower as a concrete structure because the mob has control on concrete and it would get you in good with them. There are plenty of developers that don't do that. They may be billionaires, that we may not like them. We may think that they do a lot of tax dodging and other stuff. They might be sketchy on their own front, but they're not mobbed up like that, for example. And they're certainly not buddies with Putin to this extent.
Yeah.
There will be another, somebody to fill the gap that Trump leaves and do it better when he's gone on all fronts, except in the world of MAGA. Because try as J.D. Vance might, try as Ted Cruz might, once Trump goes, MAGA goes with it. We'll go back to, there'll be splintery QAnon and Tea Party crowds. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
I'm sure a bunch of them.
Tea Party.
Yeah, they'll keep calling themselves MAGA for a while. They'll have little gold statues, I have no doubt, of him, that they can rub its feet for good luck and that kind of stuff. But once once he's gone, it's gone. And that I would argue that, again, not pushing for or wishing for this directly, but it is a real thing. It is a real thing that MAGA is having to deal with, especially as he obviously starts to slip on a bunch of fronts. He's, all the stuff they were saying about Biden, absolutely true about Trump. He doesn't know the details of what he's talking about. It's always projection. And you could tell that it's a big deal because Lawrence O'Donnell did a bit this week, talking about how, and did you see that, Johnny, where he was talking about Trump's basically
I do like to see his highlights though.
He did one about Trump's, dementia is starting to show. And so it's making the rounds as far as like, there's whispers about it, and there's, his work day is arguably smaller than Biden's. And Biden's in his last year. Trump's is smaller in his first year. And he's golfed a quarter of the time he's been in office. 25 out of the 100 days, the first 100 days he was golfing. Again,
it's just like us.
Yeah. That's exactly. Now watch this drive. That's just how I say it too. So it's an old Bush callback. Anyways, so Trump's whole, there's this whole senior official in the last Trump administration told the Daily Beast at presidential appearances in the past few days that Trump has, quote, definitely lost a step, which is a sweet way.
Okay.
And
wow, that's adorable.
And Lawrence O'Donnell did did a segment, which is not surprising that he would do this. Okay. It wouldn't surprise anybody that Lawrence O'Donnell would point this out and even make this case. It was the response that I think perked everybody's ears up. So the White House response to it was, swift and very negative. And like, he passed a cognitive exam. He knows exactly what he's doing. You've got Trump derangement syndrome. All right. I got to say, Trump has never had a sense of humor about himself. He's definitely thin-skinned. But the reactions to this stuff being so sharp and so direct and so, so scorched earth, I think actually points to the fact that they're defensive about this. There will be, before they would just like dismiss it. In the first term, I mean, obviously that he said a lot of bizarre.
The Burmese executives. So this Burmese, they say, pronounce it Burmese.
Yeah, no one ever said that.
Free healthcare for illegal.
Right. So all along,
Corona means Italy.
He's always been kind of just dumb.
Our army manned the airports. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
I'd like to point out that he said airports twice. He corrected and then went back to airports. That in and of itself is just fascinating.
Action replays in magnified portion.
So he's always had a difficult time with vocabulary. He's had a difficult time talking like a grown-up, thinking like a grown-up. We've known this. But now it's starting to get really bad. And that, I think, is why you're seeing a lot more of a response from Caroline Leavitt and other people in the administration jumping on this with both feet every time it comes up. And I have to say, that is more of a sign that they don't want that message getting out because it is becoming self-evident day after day. And right now, MAGA has a reason not to like him. The Epstein stuff, the tariff stuff is not working. Obviously, prices are going up. They can see that the docks are empty. That means shelves will be empty. They're looking down the barrel at Christmas. They can do this level math even if they don't want to out of dear leader. Now they're having to fight against this idea as well. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Parts Radio program, Mega Worldwide. We'll be joined by Philip Ittner live from Kyiv. Lots to talk about, certainly in the world, and it certainly helps that he's done some time in the Middle East, and we could talk about that as well. We'll be back right after this. go back to here. And then I'm going to put you up the edge to the right. And then we'll go up to here. And I think everybody, yeah, there we go. Now I got to move Johnny again.
Oh, no.
I got it. Don't worry. You're fine. I'll go to here. This is the cube, this one. Okay, we'll go to this guy. And we'll move you over.
There
Whee!
we go.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What's up?
We're good.
What's up in the Middle East?
Well, I mean, obviously, the Hexeth is skipping going to Israel. They're going straight to Saudi Arabia, and all this alleged Houthis deal that Trump's floated. The Houthis said, nope, we're gonna, anybody even loosely tied to Israel, we're gonna blow that ship out of the water. They didn't tell Israel about the deal. And so, Israel is complaining outwardly about it, while at the same time, Trump has been talking behind the scenes with their people. So you kind of just it all seems like cosplay. It all seems performative BS. No one buys it. So, and then
I haven't been watching the news except for this part of the world. So you're going to have to clue me in.
Well, and also, so this coalition of the willing meeting, I'm sure we'll talk about. The Zelenskyy and the European leaders say they're ready for a 30-day ceasefire. I think this is a strategy that's working really well. No, I agree. Not from Russia's standpoint. Right.
No.
Yeah.
And Trump is not going to follow through on being guarantors of a ceasefire. And we're probably going to get shellacked today, tomorrow, or Monday
because of Victory Day, because of that whole business.
A whole bunch of stuff, but there's a heightened advisory from the embassy that we're to expect some sort of massive attack.
Gotcha.
So, always fun. I think when those guys leave, probably the clock starts ticking because they won't do it while they're here. And when the big four leave.
Well, hang on to that because I want to talk about that on the. I want to talk about that on the air. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Like, the question, and there's this. Hold on. The strategic. I think it's called like the Defense Fund Ukraine. Let's see. Various global security contingency fund. I think that's it.
Is this the money that they've taken from the interest on the seized Russian money? Is that what you're referring to?
Partly. So there's this under the table story, and I don't know if it's part of the alleged deal making that supposedly is going on behind the scenes at some point, or they just were too lazy to check. But there's this security fund that Ukraine takes donations through for its defense, and Europeans kick in and all that kind of stuff, and we secretly just gave them just shy of $1 billion maybe a month ago or something. And it might just be that stuff that it went through channels starting in December.
Be highly surprised if it was the administration. I'll bet it was Congress or DOD or state.
Yeah, it was already in the pipe.
The administration, or it was already in the pipe. But I'd be stunned if it was the administration. It's all performative.
Yeah.
And then Victory Day parade yesterday and all that kind of fun stuff.
Right.
It's always bizarre event.
Yeah.
Always is. I've seen 5 of them.
Right. We'll talk about I'm gonna check on these things real quick. And then we'll certainly discuss the like the current like kind of battlefield conditions. Like it's effectively been kind of a stalemate. The Russians haven't really made any moves of note in months.
No, the Ukrainians are back in Kursk.
Stand by, coming back.
Thank you.
Thanks. That part is fascinating.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at housefarms.com.
Well, I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn pus-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Well, welcome to the show, Philip Bittner, host of On the Edge. Please like and subscribe to his podcast. Johnny Million is still with us. He's the host of It's Johnny Million on Twitch and YouTube. A wonderful diversion from the current unpleasantness, as they say.
Very different from this.
The CIA, as it were. And Phil, we were talking during the break and trying not, to save some of it for on the air, but this idea that there was just a meeting of world leaders with Zelenskyy saying, they are officially ready for a 30-day ceasefire. The ball is now in Russia's court.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of a historic day today. Not really highly promoted previously or released, but apparently, four of the major European powers had their heads of state arrive here, with the exception of Poland sent their prime minister, who is not their head of state, but very well-respected gentleman by the name of Donald Tusk. And then Keir Starmer, British prime minister, French President Macron, and Chancellor, newly appointed German Chancellor Merz were here. Pretty much unannounced. They all came in the morning. They've been here throughout the day. I will be stunned if they stay for a second day. I'm sure they'll be leaving. But yeah, they met with Zelenskyy. Macron in particular was very strong about there being some sort of ceasefire. They had a conference call with Donald Trump, President Trump. And Macron walked away from that saying that the United States would be guarantors of any kind of ceasefire.
Right.
I'll believe that when I see it.
Sure.
And, Putin has repeatedly said he wouldn't accept a ceasefire. We've just had a 3 days. Well, we've had a fake 3-day ceasefire to mark the 80th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day, which is celebrated on the 8th from the Western powers, and now Ukraine has joined as well. But the Russians mark it on the 9th, and of course they had their Red Square parade, which is always garish and a little bit. I always found, even when I lived in Moscow and they did this, I always felt it was a little bit, in bad taste. Like, you're not supposed to say Happy Memorial Day sort of thing. It was this celebration of this devastating war in which millions of people were killed, and the Russians treat it as if it's Mardi Gras. It always stuck in my craw. It didn't seem right. But anyhow, regardless, they had their annual celebration, because it is a celebration as far as the Russians are concerned, almost bordering on the point of religion. And they had a lot of dignitaries there from the kind of autocratic world. Xi Jinping was there, and he apparently, he made some public statements about, the strength of union between Russia and China remains strong and resolute and unbreakable and this kind of stuff.
Right.
So all that far for all happened yesterday, and then today these guys rock up in Kiev, have these massive meetings. They will leave, but we here in Ukraine have been warned by the U.S. Embassy. American citizens living in Ukraine have been warned by the embassy to expect some sort of large-scale attack in the next 48 hours or so. They don't go into detail because they can't, because of intelligence gathering concerns. But they did put out a public notice to American citizens that we can expect sometime between the 10th and the 12th, now that the May 9th Victory Day kind of parade and Putin's baloney ceasefire is concluded. We can expect some sort of massive attack in the next 48 hours. He is not going to accept a 30-day ceasefire.
Right.
This is all performative. None of this is going to come to fruition because Putin can't stop the war. He's stuck. He's in a catch-22. If he stops the war now, his economy is on a war footing. It will screech to a sudden halt, and be, it will be very bad to have a bunch of guys who are coming from the front lines being paid by the Kremlin to be soldiers, going back to their little villages where the factories will have been transitioned into wartime produce, production of wartime goods. And that runs the gamut of things, even like food and, clothing and stuff, but it's all aimed at, keeping the military going. So these guys will go from the front line back to that, or what? They'll stay in Donbass as some sort of,
well, and the other thing, you also have shipping of,
he can't do it.
Yeah, and you have a shift of manufacturing in Russia as far as its consumer goods.
Right.
Whatever it did produce, it's getting more of it from China because China is looking for other markets. And one of the ways they're doing that to extend their lasting hand of friendship to Vladimir Putin is giving him a cut on these consumer goods that are backing up in the ports there. So even if you wanted to, shift back into it, it's going to cost you more, just like, the transition of manufacturing in the West did when it went over there. Like once that factory is shifted to one thing, economically there's no value in shifting back. I will say that at the gathering, everybody seems to be mastering the Macron handshake, and that Zelenskyy openly thanked Trump for not halting U.S. military aid at their kind of joint press conference that he had with Macron and the other world leaders. And said, and he thanked him for not halting U.S. military aid, continuing intelligence sharing critical for defending Ukrainian skies, and maintaining sanctions against Russia. Now, there's been a lot of talk back and forth about whether or not they were doing that or whether or not they were going to do it, but he said it openly that Trump has not stopped it. Now, Hegseth tried and then got busted and had to turn it back on. So that was one of the other things, too, is that Hegseth stopped Ukrainian aid and got a dressing down in all of it, both because he doesn't have the ability to do it because that's Congress's role. It's the same thing that happened with the javelins, right? And in this particular case, it has led to this big old thank you, Mr. President, for not stopping that stuff. And that's making the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world livid because it draws attention to the fact that that stuff is still coming in at a lesser extent. Certainly, there's no ratcheting up of it to respond to what's going on. Obviously, that's one of the issues, is that as the Russians attack more, you'll actually need more support, more armaments and the like. And that, it's sort of like a compliment by faint praise or insult by faint praise. It's that's what they're doing, is like, we're not helping, but we're by not meeting the sort of standard of living cost that's happening in the war, we're kind of backing away at the same time while looking like we're standing shoulder to shoulder. But even still, that's way better than what people expected, which was for them to basically bail entirely.
Yeah, and there's the threat of if you don't agree to a ceasefire sort of thing, if you become the problem, then we're going to tighten sanctions, go after people who are breaching sanctions by trading with Russia. Looking at you, India, that kind of thing. And then, and of course, in his bombastic way, he said, we'll send so many weapons, you won't believe it, and all this kind of stuff. Look, we'll see what happens, but nobody should be expecting an imminent ceasefire in this war. It's not going to happen. The European, but again, I think the European leaders showing up here today in a show of solidarity, and I'm sure there were promises of weapons and funds that we'll learn about as the day, the next 24 hours or so. But I don't think any of those leaders are expecting Putin to accept a 30-day ceasefire.
No, I agree.
This is them lobbing the ball back into Putin's court.
Yes.
And when Putin denies it, they can go, aha, you see. And, that's kind of how that's how geopolitics sometimes work.
Well, yeah, I
So
think
we'll see.
I think this is another way of also calling Trump's bluff in this situation. Like,
That
look,
too, yes.
we're doing everything you ask of us, and look who is leaving you hanging. Your old buddy Vlad. That's the issue more than anything else. Like, we were never the problem. We're the ones that got invaded, but we're even willing to come to the table and address, your concerns, because they know full well they can make empty promises to some degree in this. Because they know, like you said, Putin's not going to live up to it. He can't. He cannot. I mean, Putin is convinced at this point he's so all in. And I guess we have to talk about that in the next little bit. Like, after we come back, I want to talk about the current losses that Russia has had as of today. The massive number. So we'll take a break. We'll come back after this. I want to encourage people to subscribe to On the Edge, which is Phil's blog and his vlog rather on YouTube. And of course, it's Johnny Million on YouTube and Twitch. And of course, infotainmentwars.com. Like and subscribe. We don't need the documents. We have everything memorized. We'll be back.
Okay. God, have you seen him lately, by the way?
Trump?
Alex? No, Alex Jones.
Oh, Alex Jones. Yeah. Ozempic Alex? Yeah.
Oh my God, Ozempic Alex.
Oh, is he crazy skinny now?
He's dropping weight.
Of nightmares. The stuff
yes, and
he's nightmares.
Smoking. He's like, I'm working out and I'm doing all this working out stuff.
He's got that Ozempic thing where his head is not changed, and he's got that little skinny neck, so he's kind of like,
my neck does look like a vagina.
Oh, but the head
right, that whole
big.
I do have this loose skin though.
Yeah.
And welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Right now, as of May 10th, the Russian casualties are listed as 964,580. That's 1,310 in the last 24 hours. They've lost, in the last 24 hours, 7 armored fighting vehicles, 22,440 altogether, 47,830 vehicles and fuel tanks, 10,790 tanks. That 4 of them in the last 24 hours. They've lost 49 artillery systems since last night, 27,637 in total. They've lost 35,000 UAVs, 1,380 MLRSs. They are not controlling the air, so they have stayed out. They haven't lost it. They've lost 372 airplanes, 335 helicopters, but 0 in the last, I guess, month and a half or whatever, because they're not flying, because they keep getting shot out of the sky, even over their own territory, which goes to the whole re-seizure of Kursk, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. And they lost an anti-aircraft system, one of the radar systems, last night. They've lost 1,158 of those. They've lost a submarine and 28 boats against an army that does not have a navy. You have to be an egomaniac on a scale that is as yet uncharted to be Vladimir Putin and think there is any way out of it, besides the complete seizure of Ukraine, where there's a soft landing, and that is ever going to happen is nuts.
I mean, maybe. If you look at it objectively, if the lines are solidified, like right now, if there was this hypothetical 30-day ceasefire headed towards a permanent ceasefire or even a peace treaty, he loses. This has been catastrophic for very little gain. If he can take a city called Kramatorsk, he might be able to say, look, we've taken all of Donbass, because Kramatorsk is kind of seen as the last major city and the gateway to the Donbass. But that's going to be a hard sell anywhere outside of his faithful and the Putin cult that exists within Russia. The world will know. And I think many, there's a huge section of Russian society that will know that it wasn't worth the cost. So, this would be disastrous if the war started now. has stopped now. So
yeah.
yeah.
And again, I don't, the amount of land that they've taken versus what they had before for the loss that they've accrued is just absurd. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. It is off the scale with their failures in Afghanistan. It is
Oh yeah.
an order of magnitude worse than America's Vietnam losses. And you could argue there wasn't even, this idea of like the Chinese communists pressing into there, a North-South fight going on like there was during the Korean War and the like. And there was a suggestion by Keith Kellogg and others that there be a DMZ, that they set up a demilitarized zone, that everybody backs off the front line by 15 kilometers and leave it there during this kind of ceasefire process. And Zelenskyy has said that is officially dead, that there's not going to be a DMZ, largely because with the range of missiles that Russia is firing, they would just fire over it. Nobody trusts them that they would actually do that. And why would you have a demilitarized zone of your own land? This is not even a situation where you have like North and South Koreans where they're like, we're both Korean. We just have an argument like almost like a governor over a borderline between two states in that regard. This isn't anywhere near that, especially at this period, right?
No.
This wasn't, the country wasn't divided during this conflict.
I have heard floated not a DMZ, but rather a zone that would be more like a kill zone. That if you step into it, that it would have constant drones. Constant
a
drones.
Super militarized zone. Great. That's a brilliant idea.
Like a 10-kilometer corridor along where the lines are
no
now.
Fly, no walk, no roll, no stroll,
if you
smile
step
zone.
in there, there's a constant swarm of drones, both sides having drones, just carpeting a strip of 10 kilometers or whatever,
like that.
Along the, I've heard that floated, but a DMZ where like people are like on the Korean Peninsula are sitting at one edge of the DMZ, armed to the teeth and building defenses, and then they're on the other side of the DMZ doing the same thing. Not going to happen here.
Exactly. Because
that will not work.
Yeah, the Russian entrenchment and the ability, them doing these lines of trenches were part of the problem anyways while they seized territory. So why would they give them longer to do that, years and years and years, to build up what effectively is like a Gaza tunnel system all throughout Kharkiv and other places? It'd be insanity to allow that to happen.
And
especially
they just build back up their offensive capability, and they do some sort of, blitzkrieg kind of thing through the DMZ, which is what they would eventually do. So the Ukrainians will never accept it. Yeah,
agreed.
The Ukrainians will never accept
it. Europe, the EU, and this might be part and parcel to the whole tariff thing that's going on, but the EU is floating a plan to ban all Russian gas imports, period, from everyone in the EU, which is, everybody's gotten a waiver as they get away from it. It's definitely dropped off a lot. Russia's, oil industry is, if it comes back online, it will decimate the U.S. oil industry because they're barely hanging on. Right now, oil is at $60 a barrel. To break even, Russia needs $55 a barrel, period. If they come back into the market, it goes to 40 as it stands right now. The OPEC plus countries released another 414,000 barrels a month for the second month in a row. They held off as long as they could, but Saudi Arabia is kicking this flow up, and they were the holdouts. Arguably, and this is unconfirmed because it's only multiple sources, but nobody can quite get a beat on what Trump is actually thinking or doing. But part of this trip to Saudi Arabia is to get them to increase supply, even as they have already increased supply, lowering the barrel price to $60. The last time Saudi Arabia did this, and I wrote about this on my Substack, the last time they did this was during 2020 when they were trying to kill the fracking and the shale oil industry in the United States, that they decided that they were going to do a rug pull essentially of the oil industry by they can withstand it. They're sitting on cash stores, and they would eventually get to. I have a trapped cat. Beg your pardon. Yeah, it's okay, Murph. You'll be okay. I'll let you out in a second. But there's a like
He will
they
not be
know
okay.
he will not be. He's not definitely not okay. But he's the handsome man. He's the handsome man. But I know. But he was basically saying if you can't hear Murphy loud enough, he was saying basically this seems like a ploy by the Saudis again, and Trump is falling right into their trap. But the reality is that this much oil. Listen, you'll hear him try to open the door. He can do it. He's an ape, not a cat. It's amazing. But that you've been through, I'm sure, these between Iraq and Afghanistan and all these others, kind of like our protests of no war for oil and all this idea, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves in this situation where Trump is going to go there to try and lower the price of energy when there is already an oil glut happening.
Yeah. Well, he's desperate to get those, $1.98 buck a gallon, rates, which he's not going to get. Look, yeah, Russia would be absolutely screwed if they were brought back onto the market by their own dent of that would be lowering the cost of a barrel.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's.
So Russia, so
no
Russia's
winner.
is 55. Russia's is 55. Let's be abundantly clear about how this goes. America doesn't have necessarily a uniform break-even price because we are not a nationalized oil country the way Saudi Arabia and Russia are, and a lot of the OPEC resource countries are. We are not. They have variability. They go by the markets, and they can play with the markets all they want. Exxon versus Chevron, they can mess around as much as they want in that regard. And the government, other than maybe pulling the leash on leases or something, has very little control over the oil price as far as American companies. It's all based on supply. And we don't tend to manipulate supply in the West. We, especially in the United States, we just try to create as much as we can and get it out there. It's that kind of like, if there's demand that is above break even, there's profit to be made. Off they go. But the Saudis have used this as leverage because they're well ahead. They've got financial stores in the same way that I think Russia built up its military fund. It's so that they could enter this war with some money in the bank to help them evade sanctions or not worry about that. But building this like this line city and their little special islands and all the stuff that Saudi Arabia is doing to fix their budget, they have to hit $90 a barrel to break even right now in their country. 90. It's not going to 90. China's slowing down, whether anybody likes it or not. Their economy is not going to continue to spiral up like everybody said they would. And so that counting on that price going up again is absurd. And yet Trump is going over there to basically say, hey guys, pump more. Put more into it, drive the price down, because he thinks that's going to save him from the tariff inflation and the other inflationary aspects. Is that if energy drops out of the bottom of it, it'll be a wash. Yeah, everything. Oh, if gas goes down 50%, but your goods go up, 10% or 20%, he thinks it's going to even out. But what it's going to do is wreck the oil and gas industries in the United States, stop all of his drill baby drill nonsense, and basically peter out any exploration or pumping that's going on right now to the standard that it's at currently. And then there's going to be a glut and the price will go down, and every other thing that's tied to oil prices is going to collapse as well. And I don't think he's intellectually capable of even understanding that at all. That there's more than two moving parts.
Wouldn't shock me. No. Well, he never looks beyond two steps ahead. It's
right.
Always,
I think the 5D chess thing that everybody finger in the wind, see what yeah. He's got to stick his thumbs in the dam and then his big toe and right,
his little mushroom.
And just keep the leaks from happening. Right, easy. So but I would say that like. He's a lot of times people think he's doing like 5D chess or something, not because they've seen evidence that he plays some sort of special version of Spock chess, but that this is so nuts. Nobody would do this that wasn't insane, that didn't have another plan. Instead of just Occam's razor, the dude is crazy or stupid or both. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Johnny Million's going to be gathering questions from the chat infotainmentwars.com, and on the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/HalSparks. We'll be back. So this is pretty fascinating. Hold on one second.
Looking pretty good for a guy in a war zone there, Phil.
Yep.
Yay.
There we go. Let me open. Sorry, chat room. I wasn't able to have the chat open till just now on my screen, so I couldn't see it till it gets started. Boy, there's a bunch of you guys in there, though. Hit the like, share the show. Don't forget to subscribe. I insist. Stock up on essentials. The shelves are going to be empty by June, July. It's probably about the window if things start to happen. Yeah. It won't be toilet paper, though.
No. He's in trouble. He's in.
Yeah.
When it really comes down.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, that's Johnny is 1.5 million now because of inflation.
Yeah.
I wanted to. What was this? Yeah. This fascinated me as well. Hold on. This guy right here. MAGA is quiet as Trump and Vance criticize Putin.
Back in 15.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yep. And with that famous picture of them talking at the Vatican is very difficult for the Trump crowd to react negatively to, even if they don't like Catholics, because it's a church no matter what. And
you're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
There's an article in Axios. MAGA is quiet as Trump Vance criticize Putin. The base isn't for the Ukraine war. They're still kind of in the Marjorie Taylor Greene part of this. But the big MAGA voices that have always been against Ukraine, Posobiec said, in general, the MAGA base is not on board with extending or expanding the war and trust Trump when he is in negotiation mode, but I don't think extra payments to Ukraine will go over well. But nobody has said anything. Like, nothing is people honking on V-Day. Is this, are we seeing
no, just traffic.
Well, I understand. I'm trying to get home before the air raid sirens go off. The irony is that big dust up in the Oval Office that people were talking about, which we discussed ad nauseum a couple of times, didn't actually amount to a hill of beans. It didn't damage any more than was already expected. It didn't add a layer of, now he's really going to pull the rug. If anything, you could argue that when that happened, that was when Hegseth thought, oh, we're not sending anything to Ukraine anymore, boss. And then when he did, he got handed his ears, essentially.
And the fact that they were about to sign a version of the mineral deal that would have been far worse for Ukraine on the day, but because of the dust up, they didn't sign the deal and went into further negotiations, and we finally did the mineral. We at the end of the day, we got a mineral deal that has been signed, and it is ratified by the parliament here in Ukraine. So it's a done deal, but it's far more equitable to the Ukrainians. It allows them
than the one they were trying to get him to.
If he had signed the version on the day when Vance decided to be, when Vance decided to spark an argument and the whole thing imploded, had they signed that mineral deal, Ukraine would be in far worse position. So actually, J.D. Vance did a solid for Ukraine without even meaning to, because again, they get profit sharing. And they keep ownership of the assets of the infrastructure that's going to be built here. So far better than what it was. So again, I mean, I have to say, I know that I've got people on the team and on the edge who really don't like Zelenskyy. They stand by him because he's the wartime leader of Ukraine. but they're hypercritical of him. And one of the issues was this mineral deal. And I even had a conversation after the final version was signed, in which, people were like, well, actually, it looks like Zelenskyy may have managed that very well and turned that negative Oval Office experience and that
blowing it up might have been the art of the deal way of walking away. Ultimately, the irony. Trump had said of Putin, he goes, it makes me think after he kept firing on civilian areas, and Trump keeps trying to drop back to this whole like, I just want the killing to stop, as if it's like a both sides issue. He goes, it makes me think that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. He's just tapping me along and has to be dealt with differently through banking or secondary sanctions. That's what he said about Putin. And then this week, Vance said that Russia was, quote, asking for too much, and that part of their starting point was they wanted territory they had not even conquered yet. And that in and of itself, yeah, right. And the irony that it is basically, it is, and I think this is why it's such a great play by these other world leaders that Trump desperately wants to be a part of. All these people are calling me for a deal. They love me. They, when they're just laughing behind his back and everybody knows it, just like last time, that he desperately needs these people to love, appreciate, and revere him, and they absolutely don't. And when they're meeting with Zelenskyy and everybody's having these kind of very statesman-like adult gatherings that look like real governance versus his weird blathers with him standing up there holding up a big cardboard sign of all the countries he's doubled and tripled his tariffs on, which just looks dopey and weak, and it looks like an infomercial for, that's a midday infomercial, if you know what I'm saying. And then we will see, over the next little bit, but I like the idea that he was able to, I guess, glad hand Trump into sticking around with this. And then the other side, the Russians are seen as the ones who have too hard a line or asking too much, are playing with Trump. Even, he's tapping me along, but that's what he meant. They're playing with me. And that is exactly what's happening. I don't see that changing from Vladimir Putin anytime soon. Like, I don't know. There is no way that I can see that Vladimir Putin stops stringing Trump along and actually gives him anything in this situation, like that, where he could save himself.
Well, again, because he can't. Can't. And the other thing that reveals about both JD Vance and Trump, but more so JD Vance in some ways, is it again reveals his ignorance of the situation. Like, he's shocked that Russia is being unreasonable. It's like, well, in the words of, the great John McClane, welcome to the party, pal. It's just, it reveals his willful ignorance about the situation. And you got to also keep in mind the track history when it comes to Vance, even back when he was senator, right? He was senator from Ohio, wasn't he?
Ohio,
or
yeah.
Was he Congress? Yeah, he was senator.
Senator.
When he attended the Berlin Security Conference, 2 years ago, he had an opportunity to meet with Zelenskyy and said, I already know everything I need to know about the war in Ukraine.
Right.
Well, you clearly don't, because if you're coming from a place where, like, I am shocked that Vladimir Putin is being really problematic about this stuff, then it's like, well, then you don't know what's happening here. And so it just shows that they're completely out of their depth. And you're right. I think the European leaders who decided to make a conference call with Trump so that he could feel involved, I'm sure were like, the second they got off the conference call, we're like, okay, Volodymyr, now let's really talk, because we've done our nice little you get to feel like you're a participant. Here's your participation prize, Donald. You're definitely involved, and we're definitely consulting with you.
Well, okay,
yeah, you're in the loop.
So
and
at the Vatican meeting, insofar as what we know about, the conversation that they had, it was fairly obvious that Zelenskyy spent a decent amount of his time talking about the realities of the war and the fact that they were attacked, right? Specifically saying we were the ones attacked. He kept driving this home. But in the same meeting, he said he would not, and that the Ukrainians, not just him, but the Rada, the people of Ukraine, will never recognize Crimea as Russian, that they're not going to do it. And Trump said, allegedly, he's not asking him to, which is a really weird thing. And again, it's sort of an odd capitulation from Trump, but with, well, then what's the alternative? If you're going to ask us to, then you should not have a problem with us trying to reclaim it once we get the Russians to fall back, which means this is going to continue, and you can either help or you can share in the unnecessary deaths that would happen if you let these guys roll over us. The plan calls for that Trump was pushing was the U.S. would recognize Crimea as Russian, but the Ukrainians don't have to, which was that's Trump's version of a deal.
Yeah.
And Zelenskyy said, Zelenskyy said he needs security guarantees or he cannot make concessions, that would lead to a ceasefire, because they're going to, if it's just Ukrainians that are going to die, the Russians are going to try it again anytime. They're going to they're going to start this up again sometime in the future. All they're going to do, any pause, any ceasefire, even a stoppage of the war, is just going to be a time for Russia to reload and attack again. The Ukrainians will use that same amount of time to, build up their stockpiles and all that kind of stuff, but not to attack into Russia, but indeed to protect themselves against what they know is going to be an attack in the future. They're going to be aware that and so the military industry in Ukraine is going to grow inexorably over the next 5 to 10 years, both supporting, European countries. They're going to want to buy drones and other stuff that they've gotten good at making, on top of just, all the other foodstuffs that they sell. Right. So I have to say, we may be finding out that Zelensky's strategy with Trump, for all of its oh dear God, this was a close call, or that fell away, or this was dangerous, this went, this could have gone south, that this in of itself could have been a greater strategy the whole time. And Donald Trump is not a hard lock to pick.
No, and Zelenskyy is extremely good at this kind of stuff. He knows how to tailor his messaging to the target, whether it's the Europeans or whether it's he'll go to France and he'll speak about fraternité, égalité, liberté. He'll go to the British Parliament and he'll quote Churchill. He knows he knows exactly how to cater his interests to the target audience. So he is, like him or loathe him, he is legitimately
he had a skill beforehand. Right. He had a skill as a performer and as his empathy reflexes of an actor and a comedian are pretty well tuned. But on top of that, I think he's had a master class in reality during this, that the seriousness of what he's going through anchors him in what he's got to accomplish more so than it does for Trump. There is no anchor on Trump's ass right now. There is no point where he takes any of this seriously, because he thinks he's going to come out, no matter, even if it destroys the U.S. economy, he and his family are going to get rich from all this. So he's untethered from gravity right now in his own mind. And now I don't think he is, but he thinks he is. Zelenskyy knows he isn't. Zelenskyy knows that that real lives are on the line, and that these kind of decisions have to be made with that in mind. I know there's questions from the chat. I don't know if we have time for a short one before we go to break.
Sure,
Johnny.
Sure, yeah. I've got one from Nick Rich, 56 Nick Rich. Does the news from the Vatican have any effect on the Ukraine?
Well, I mean, he seems to be more receptive to being, that he's not afraid of going up against Trump, one, but he's also, look, he's a pope. He's supposed to be built on compassion.
That's right.
But Francis came under a lot of criticism about, being more open to Russia's position, Whereas I don't think Leo is going to be the same way. Well, we have to wait and see. You have to keep in mind that also, there are a lot of Catholic Ukrainians. This is the west of Ukraine is Catholic territory. There's even a very bizarre hybrid of Eastern Orthodox. There's a church here that does Eastern Orthodox rites, and their worship is done with Eastern Orthodox rites, but they fall under the Vatican. This is a very complicated place when it comes to religion because of the intermixing of empires and cultures and things like that. But there are a lot of people that turn to the Vatican and the Holy See as defining in their lives. So of course it's going to be a big deal here. I've heard from Ukrainians who say that we just hope that he will be more understanding that his flock is in Ukraine, and that while he needs to be compassionate towards all humanity, that Russia as the aggressor nation shouldn't be treated as kindly and as with such understanding as his predecessor did. So that they're hoping the new pope will be compassionate, but on the right side of history.
Right. Let's take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Pew pew
pew pew.
First new branch of the U.S. Armed Forces in 75 years, Space Force. Not
since the Ass Force.
Jesus.
The Ass
He
Force.
literally said that. Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay, hold on.
They manned the ramparts.
Yeah.
They stormed.
They rammed the ramparts.
Yeah, right.
The airport. They did whatever they had to do. God, he's an idiot.
Uh-huh.
Just such a profound idiot. Oh, well. Boy, is he going to be in trouble in about 6 months. Not even that. Won't even be 6 months.
Yeah.
Americans like in my little rural town in Michigan.
Yeah.
If the Walmart is empty, they're not going to like that. They're really not going to like that. They're all Trumpy when it's easy, but when things get hard, I think they're gonna turn on him pretty quick.
Yeah, they've got a real identity crisis. They think that they're voting for themselves, but they're not billionaires. They're in the wrong tax bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
I live in a very purple part of Michigan. We're right on the border between, because as you go, the farther you go north into Michigan, the more red you get. I'm kind of on the cusp of red and blue Michigan.
Stand by, coming back.
Thank you.
I think a lot of guys are going to when they go to the Walmart, it's going to get ugly.
Mm-hmm. I guess we get to. We'll do the. Hold on. The Cosmos 482 news. I don't know if you know this. Do we hear music coming back from Chicago yet, or we'll be back in a minute? Okay. Yeah. So Russia launched in 1971.
Oh, that thing. Yeah.
It was their Venus lander.
Put the music in.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
You're on.
Oh, well, hey, we're back. Look at that. I feel like I should play some music welcoming back like that. That's for Johnny. There you go. So, I think the happy ending. Johnny's doing that with his hands, by the way, in case you're listening on the radio. It's a bizarre skill, and it's nice to know that if society falls, he'll be able to busk his way back to greatness even if there's no electric guitars. Tonight,
Must
at
be
some
really
point,
great.
oh wait, so I guess it's already fallen to Earth. I guess it's, in the timing or whatever. But the Cosmos 482, the Russian Venus lander, they sent a lander that was going to go to Venus, and it got into a decaying or a stuck orbit, and then it finally entered a decaying orbit and fell to Earth after 53 years bouncing around. And that's not even the most interesting thing that's happened in terms of Russian space stuff. So I don't know how up to date these guys are on it. And we'll get back to some questions. Johnny, do you have a couple more questions, Johnny? Because I want to do one thing real quick. Okay, so
this one we kind of touched on this, but this is from.
Hold on for 1 second though. Hold on 1 second though. Before you get to that, I'm going to show this real quick. This is, where is it? Here we go. Russian satellite trio just dropped something weird in orbit. So the Russians, while they're, this may be why Trump is getting irritated with them, or why the Marco Rubios of the world might gain influence with Donald Trump over, say, the J.D. Vances and others. Russia just did a practice, it looks like, they just did a practice run with 3 satellites that surrounded an old object, another satellite, and did something to it, and then it fell out of orbit, and it wasn't the 42, the thing we were just talking about. It was another piece. Like, they were practicing on space junk, it seems. But these things, these devices, these 3 satellites can be coordinated to basically encircle a U.S. satellite or a Ukrainian satellite or a British satellite or something like that, and collapse it, make it, basically destroy it, wreck its outer shell, or modify it in some way, or poke it in a way that makes it change its orbit and therefore fall out of the sky. And ladies and gentlemen, this would be Russia's version of Space Force. This is what they're doing.
Yeah.
The U.S. is worried
They've
Russia
always
may be testing a space
for
weapon.
years, for decades.
They've been doing this.
Decades. They've said, oh, we shouldn't weaponize space. We shouldn't weaponize space.
Which means they're weaponizing space.
Exactly. It's projection. It's,
yeah.
All the while they're preparing to weaponize space. So this doesn't come as a big surprise to me.
No, but it's pretty telling that they're doing it while Trump is while Trump is president. It's a big middle finger to him in the middle of all this other process. And there's no way. I mean, maybe that's why he's avoiding reading his presidential daily brief, because I guarantee this story is in it. And the details are worse than what we can find out, and they're already bad. Let's finish with some questions, Johnny, that I know you have in there for Phil.
Yeah, I've got one from Perspicacious M. Can they hold Kursk? I know we kind of touched on this before.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I don't think they want to. These incursions are meant to divert assets from the east and the south and Kharkiv. Look, the Ukrainians will continue to do this, and given their high command, like Hsrpm and Budanov, the generals at the head of the Ukrainian armed forces, even they have kind of admitted that, like, we are doing this to make sure that the war goes to Russia and that Putin has to respond to what we're doing, instead of us always being reactive to what the Russians are doing. I don't think they will hold. They might hold territory in Kursk as a negotiating tactic. They may hold territory in Kursk as an irritant for Putin, again, to make him force him to use assets, divert them from other fronts. But there's no desire in Kiev to annex Kursk. There might be some crazies, but generally what we're hearing from authorities here in Kiev is this is about something bigger picture. We don't want to annex Kursk.
Right. Also, if I may, on the other note of what's happening in space, Germany is now building spy satellites to help Ukraine watch Russia without the U.S. So Rheinmetall has plans to begin production in late 2026, aiming to give Ukraine battlefield eyes if Washington blinks, which means they're going ahead with it. More than likely, if they're saying 2026 and they're talking about something like this, it's either already up or it will be this fall. And they're trying to pretend, oh, it'll be a year away. This is a just in case kind of a situation, but we're just launching TV satellites up in there. Also, I'd like to remind everybody, in case you don't know, do you realize that every single day, 4 to 5 Starlink satellites fall to Earth? And that constant decay is damaging the ozone layer. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not designed not to be better than that, which is different than designed to fail on purpose. They're just not bothering. And the number of these, he wants something like in the order of 17,000 to 30,000 of these things up in the air. And then there are other companies that want to do it as well. And that if they do this decay thing, eventually those things, because they have aluminum in them, could wreck the ozone layer. And
aluminum in them.
Yeah, the Kuiper ones that Amazon's doing apparently have no aluminum in them because of this reason, but all the ones that are currently up there, yes, they are deorbiting. And so the Starlink ones, the original ones, are all contain aluminum and therefore are damaging to the ozone layer and will basically become a fine metal dust that affects the ozone layer because, genius, first principles or something. Anyways, let's grab another question if we have one, Johnny.
Sure, this is from Ed's 3D Tech. Can you ask Philip if the Russian parade might have been a target-rich environment for mod equipment before and after?
For mod equipment? I don't know exactly what you're getting to with mod, but was it a target-rich environment? Sure it was. But one, you had foreign dignitaries there, foreign heads of state, which would not have been smart if they had done something. And secondly, and I've spoken with Ukrainians who have varying degrees of views on this. It would have absolutely driven the Russians ballistic. They would have. I mean, and people say, well, they're already doing such terrible things in Ukraine. That's true. But May 9th is such an important day for the Russians and especially on Red Square. If they'd attacked, if they'd have done maybe not a drone attack, maybe they planted a bomb or I don't know, something, even an internet attack or, take your pick. That day is so reverential for the Russians that the response would have been pretty drastic. So, I think what Zelenskyy was saying prior to the Red Square thing about, I can't guarantee anybody's safety was a lot of trolling. It was like, don't you even look at our Red Square parade. Don't even look, in our direction, it's like the United States with don't even look at our boats. So yeah, I'm glad they didn't do anything, but not every Ukrainian agrees with me.
In another related spy satellite kind of thing from Russia, where they are clearly ratcheting up stuff that will eventually stick in the craw of even as good a buddy to Putin as Trump is. There's a Russian satellite that they have believed for a long time, the U.S. has believed for a long time, is part of a nuclear program, which is basically these things would set off a nuclear bomb in space that would wreck a system like Starlink or these other ones. That's what it would be for, is spinning out of control. Yeah. It's spinning out of control. It's been tumbling. It was doing errant tumbling. It's unclear whether they were able to write it a little bit ago, that it's done it twice in the last year, but apparently it is just spinning. It's the Cosmos 2553 satellite that they launched right before they invaded Ukraine. Isn't that funny? That they set a system in place that was just there essentially so that they could destroy internet communications, just like they've been cutting undersea lines and all that stuff by accident on purpose. This is the future strategy from Russia. They've done a couple of shots across the bow, trying to cut undersea lines or even technically damaging them on purpose a couple of times, and then setting up a system where if you fall back to a satellite system, they'll destroy that at the same time. This would be the two fronts where you destroy communications before a giant attack of anybody, Europe, the United States, whoever. We're at the end of the show. I want to remind everybody, On the Edge is Phil's show. Please subscribe to the channel. And we will see you next week. Phil, be safe. And Johnny Million, it's Johnny Million on Twitch and YouTube. And of course, infotainmentwars.com or twitch.tv twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. Subscribe with Amazon Prime. It doesn't cost you a dime. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Just got past it. So, awesome. Thanks, you guys.
All right, guys.
Woof.
All
right, be
talk
safe,
to you
Phil.
on Wednesday.
I insist.
Take care,
okay.
Johnny.
All right.
See you later.
Phil.
Later. Okay, hold on. I'll go back to this one. Hold on to just me and Johnny. Oh, as Johnny lean, did you leave? Hold on.
Yep.
Oh, you go back to the original. No, you're okay. Yeah, you hold on. Yeah, you're centered again. Dang nabbit, raza fraza. I feel like I should.
Hey,
there should
between
be,
you and
I know what I.
Phil's beard looks fucking perfect.
Yeah, and how,
Good
sister?
Guy. That guy.
You know what's up.
Beard.
It's amazing. So let's see. We'll zoom this in, and then we'll move Johnny over like this.
Oh God.
Oh, barf, barf. So, all right. Simmer down. Sit still. I got to see if this works. All right. In future.
All right.
Quit it.
This is where I kind of sit. There we go.
No, sit.
So Hal and I
sit
played guitar together this weekend.
We did. It was lovely. And we're going to make music together, I insist.
Seismograph.
That's right, baby. That's our official sign, I think. Whatever. This business. Anyways, I will let you go. We're gonna go see the Thunderbolts or whatever.
Yay, Thunderbolts Asterisk.
With Ethan's. Ethan wants to go see it, and so he invited. He's like, you could tell like his girl doesn't necessarily want to see it. His mom doesn't necessarily want to see it, but he's like, want to go see Thunderbolts? And I'm like, absolutely. So I'm going to see the movies with Summer's kid, and she's tagging along. We talked her into it, so it should be good. We're not Thundercats, which would be. When is that happening? When is the Thundercats movie? We need one of those for sure.
Thundercats.
I mean, it can't be worse than the He-Man movies. So,
no, probably not.
Which was, I got to say, the Dolph Lundgren He-Man movie was like a demo for the Flash Gordon movie, which, arguably shouldn't have reached the demo phase, past the demo phase anyways. Although
the Flash Gordon movie looks like a demo with a Queen soundtrack. It's crazy.
Yes, it does, which is made it, I mean, arguably you could say that the Queen soundtrack is 100% why most people are like, oh.
Yep.
Which I think should be a thing. I mean, I would argue that one of the big things you got to do, these big, like Metallica soundtrack, whatever it is, even if it's weird. And have you seen The Fall Guy?
I tried watching it. I didn't make it through, man. I stopped.
So I've watched it. I watched it on an airplane, so I watched the entire thing and whatever, and I found it increasingly enjoyable as it went on. Once you get past the fact that it's not Lee Majors and all that kind of stuff. But the love theme from Fall Guy is "I Was Made for Loving You," and they theme it. There's 3 different versions of it sung by different people. There's like the soundtrack is actually the melody of it at different times. I feel like if they had played that up more. Yep, if they'd have played that up more,
I'll give it another look.
It is. The Fall Guy is great. I enjoyed it as it's just kind of like a cute movie. Anyways, it was a fun adventure movie. I really did like it. I bought it. I ended up buying it because I liked it so much, and also as a Kiss fan, I feel like they missed an opportunity. To just all the Kiss fans in the world were like, wait a minute, I didn't realize it was featured that heavily. And they would have all bought it and been in the theater. Like it could have been turned into a thing. But they didn't. They should have called me.
They should have listened to you.
I know. And you've seen The Nice Guys, of course. So, such a great movie. I see you drinking again.
A sequel could still work. A sequel could happen.
Yeah. It could absolutely work. Oh my God, it would be great.
And they need to bring back the same actress who played his daughter.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She's terrific.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, so good. And somebody's going, go see Sinners. I will. Yes, that's on my list, but it's not on anybody else's list in the household, so I have to go see it by myself. So there you go.
So good.
Yep. So anyways, love you, brother, and I'll let you go. And hold on, let me do an official sign off so that it actually turns into a thing. Oh, he left again. Damn it. None of my friends know how to leave a show properly. I gotta give a class or something. What the hell is that? Johnny. I know Boston Brian's out there. He understands. Let me at least say goodbye. I don't know. It's a little sad is all. I want to see it. Can we see a cat? I already showed a cat. Murphy was stuck in here. Roll back. Murph was not happy. What? And why is my camera up like this again? What is happening? What are you doing? Meow. Hey, Nugchuck. I tell you, you restart a computer and everything goes to shit. All right, I love you guys. I'll see you guys on Monday. I will probably be doing the Monday shows from Los Angeles, but since we have a better system there now, is there an echo on the music? It shouldn't be. Oh yeah, I see that. I see. There is an echo. Hold on. Check. Okay, I think I fixed that whole like double audio on mine too. And then I would turn this off. Yeah, sure. That should work. The weird part is I don't know if, hold on. I think it might be because of the kidney. Oh gosh. Huh. Am I hearing this right? What's going on? Help.
The kidney has a very special place in the heart.
What the? Are you guys okay? Are you okay? Did you feel that, or was that just me? I'm fairly certain we all need to just chill. It's gonna be all right. Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Hal Vickery. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Hazy Trippy Daisies. Thank you, Jerry Cummings. Thank you, Noel.